Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of all the members of U.S. Army Old Guard, Fife, and Drum Corps, thank you for coming and welcome to tonight's concert, An Annual Revolution. Before we begin, we'd like to recognize this evening's hosts, Colonel Jason Garkey, Commander, 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, and his Regimental Command Sergeant Major, Scott Beeson. We'd also like to extend a special welcome to the Director of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Gary Cheek, and the Deputy Director of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Scott Barrier. We are also honored to have with us the Honorable James McPherson and Honorable Robert Wilkie, as well as the civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army, Karen Conlin from Virginia, and Sherwood Goldberg from Washington, D.C. A special welcome to Major General Michael Howard, Commanding General, U.S. Army Military District of Washington, and to retired Lieutenant General David Huntoon, former Old Guard Regimental Commander and Director of Army Staff, and to all our interagency partners, partner command teams, foreign allies, ladies and gentlemen, we are glad you are here tonight. Since the beginning of the American story, the Army has defended our rights as American citizens and promoted American interests at home and abroad. Army musicians not only defend those rights, but carry out the unique responsibility of fostering the patriotism of the American public and maintaining America's support of her soldiers at home and in harm's way. On 23 February 1960, Military District of Washington General Order 18 created the Fife and Drum Corps, with the mission to provide support to the Old Guard in training and ceremonies, and to entertain and inspire the public with sights and sounds of early American music. As the only unit of its kind in the Department of Defense, the Fife and Drum Corps is the standard bearer of the art form that is the soundtrack to the American story. Tonight we'll showcase our efforts to revolutionize how Army music reaches the American public. We take immense pride in our role as ambassadors of the U.S. Army to the American public, and as representatives of our soldiers and families across the nation and abroad. It is now my great pleasure to introduce the 11th Commander of the U.S. Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps, Chief Warrant Officer 4, Jeremiah Keeler. At this time, we ask that you rise as you are able for the presentation of colors and remain so standing for the United States National Anthem performed by the Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps Trumpet Ensemble. Please be seated. Parades have been a part of the social fabric of communities all over the world and are a tradition that predates our country of one of the staple performances for every Army band. As part of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, the official escort to the President, the Fife and Drum Corps has participated in every inauguration parade since John F. Kennedy's in 1961. Last year, the Corps debuted new parade music as they escorted President Donald J. Trump from the Capitol to the White House. Another opportunity to represent the Army given at some point to all soldiers is ceremonies. And ladies and gentlemen, no one does it better with more honor, dignity, and respect than the Old Guard. Chosen to represent the nation at all White House ceremonies for visiting dignitaries and heads of state, the Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps has honored world leaders such as Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, Her Majesty the Queen of England, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Pope Francis, just to name a few. Watch and listen now as the Corps honors you with the White House Armed Forces Full Honor Arrival, Troop and Review. Today's Army has revolutionized the military profession and is the most adaptable, multi-domain, and capable Army in the world. Army music endeavors to be equally as dynamic and cutting edge in its mission. Our audiences come in all shapes and sizes. Our most adaptable musical performance team reaches audiences in spaces ranging from school classrooms to concert halls and international professional trade conferences. It is often an audience member's first introduction to the Revolutionary War musician's instrumental role as the voice of the commander. I know it's hard to believe that there were no cell phones, tweets, or hashtags in 1775, but there's a reason General Washington and Inspector General von Steuben placed drums and fifes in the center and throughout the Continental Army's formations. Our show, entitled Soldier Portraits, uniquely presents specific bugle and drum calls along with fife tunes that were used during our nation's beginning. Much like the practices of colonial militias, early American music was also largely influenced by and a continuation of European traditions. Those practices are preserved in the Fife and Drum Corps' historical ensemble. Performing on traditional instruments of the period, their music further represents the soundtrack of the early American story. Notably, the historical ensemble has performed at the Department of State, music educators' conventions, high schools and universities with symphony orchestras, and toured in the Midwest as part of the Army Music Awareness and Outreach Campaign, a program sponsored by the U.S. Army Recruiting Command. Ladies and gentlemen, the U.S. Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps Historical Ensemble. Army music is charged with instilling in our forces the will to fight and win. The Revolutionary War Fifer inspired a poorly trained, under-equipped, and outnumbered Army to do just that. The Fife Ensemble preserves that musical heritage, inspiring those within an earshot of these traditional sounds with patriotism and national pride. Here in our nation's capital, it is easy to find many sights and sounds of inspiration. We need only to walk out our door to see grand monuments, memorials, and hallowed grounds. Or we can look west to the Shenandoah. Training. It's what we do so that when the time comes, you know you can depend on the soldiers to your left and your right. Army music is no stranger to training. Army musicians have often spent 10 to 20 years prior to service honing their craft, and sometimes earning advanced degrees even before raising their right hand. The entry performance standards required across the entire Army music field are on par with those required to graduate with an undergraduate degree. It's no surprise then Army musicians often bring musical talents that are beyond the scope of their specific instrumental duties. The Fife and Drum Corps hires fifers, buglers, and drummers. Guitar, mandolin, and Irish flute make up the trio you are about to hear. Though it's not fife and drum, we are confident you will enjoy what these three NCOs with a collective 70 years of training and experience have in store.
Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. These are the Army values and the values we as soldiers of the United States Army strive to live by. As Army musicians, it is our duty to provide music throughout the entire spectrum of operations, to instill in our forces the will to fight and win, foster the support of our citizens, and promote America's interests at home and abroad. We achieve these by coupling our unique knowledge with the principles set forth by the Army. Loyalty. Bear true faith and allegiance to the U.S. Constitution, the Army, your unit, and other soldiers. Remaining loyal and steadfast to the goals and purpose of the Adjutant General's Corps, Master Sergeant Rusty Smith was awarded the Colonel Robert L. Manning Achievement Medal. This award is presented to soldiers of the Adjutant General's Corps for their accomplishments and meritorious service. Duty. Fulfill your obligations. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Joseph Newby, asked how he could better lead and direct his subordinates to not only achieve mission success, but to far exceed the standard. 28 years of service in positions of increasing responsibility led to CW3 Newby being awarded the Legion of Merit. Respect. Treat people as they should be treated. Non-commissioned officers of the Corps are being sent to the U.S. Army School of Music for the Advanced Leadership Course and the Senior Leadership Course. Our fifers, drummers, buglers, and historical ensemble are creating musical performance teams and performing inspired and unique arrangements with very diverse instrumentation. The beautiful music they create and the shows they produce are all products of the respect they show each other. Selfless service. Put the welfare of the nation, the Army, and your subordinates above your own. Chief Warrant Officer 4, Jeremiah Keeler, has 24 years of experience leading up to his position now as the commanding officer of the Fife and Drum Corps. That is a career of bettering himself, taking initiative, leading and mentoring the other soldiers, issuing orders, and putting his subordinates before himself. Honor. Live up to the Army values. Non-commissioned officers who lead from the front and prove themselves through a rigorous process can be selected for induction into the Sergeant Audie Murphy Club. 2 non-commissioned officers of the Corps proved themselves and were awarded membership to this selective club. Sergeant First Class William Parks and Staff Sergeant Casey Palazzi have dedicated themselves toward being exceptional leaders and honorably exemplify all the Army values. Integrity. Do what's right, legally and morally. Our Corps is proud to have a leader such as First Sergeant Sandra Kwashnick. She is the first sergeant the Corps has had since becoming its own company within the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment in 1995. Because of her unwavering integrity, her devotion to the morale, welfare, and training of her subordinates, First Sergeant Kwashnick is the standard bearer for all non-commissioned officers in the unit. Personal courage. Face fear, danger, or adversity, physical or moral. Soldiers compete in a Soldier of the Quarter evaluation, where they must pass a board and perform a solo piece before their peers. Presenting yourself before a group of people can be intimidating, but presenting yourself before your peers requires a great deal of personal courage. Using each person's individual strength has only made the whole stronger and more resilient. We are the soundtrack of the American story. We serve to share the tradition and represent our Army to the nation and the world. We are the soldiers of your United States Army, Old Guard, Fife, and Drum Corps.
Promoting America's interests and fostering support with our allies is also an important part of outreach. Last year, the U.S. Army Old Guard, Fife, and Drum Corps performed at the Virginia International Military Tattoo and the Basel, Switzerland Military Tattoo as international ambassadors for the Army and our nation. These events have long been opportunities for diplomats and senior ranking officials to build relationships with their allied counterparts. Two bugle calls that are traditionally used to signify the end of the military duty day are often performed at these military tattoos as a tribute to fallen soldiers of all the participating nations. Last July at the Basel Tattoo, one of our buglers, Staff Sergeant Nick Nichols, was chosen from all trumpeters of the Basel Military Tattoo to perform the Last Post, which is sounded in the Commonwealth of Nations in memory of the fallen. The other call is the U.S. Army's own tattoo. The word tattoo comes from the Dutch phrase doden tattoo, which means to turn off the taps, and in the 18th century signals soldiers to return to the barracks. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you rise as you are able for the playing of the Last Post and then Tattoo. Please be seated. General Order 18, provide support and training and ceremonies, and to entertain no group in the U.S. Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps more completely excels in carrying out those orders than our drum group. Hours upon hours of beating cadence for officers and NCO regimental parade training, and then hours of key leader ceremonial rehearsals, our drummers are there for it all. Yes, our drummers are a special breed. They don't just entertain, they throw down. It's something that's primal. You know they got it right when the Muppets named their drummer Animal. The U.S. Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps Drumline.
There is never a typical performance for any Army musician because each audience in every new location has new hearts and minds to connect with. Even for some of you in the audience tonight, this may be your first introduction to us and what we do, and we are truly honored to have you here as our guests. The Army has many resources to accomplish its mission: infantry, artillery, engineering, technology, aviation, and yes, even music. Since the beginning of our nation, when the smoke clears from the battlefield and the negotiations have concluded, there still remains the task of connecting people, adversaries, soldiers, and citizens on a human level. We, as Army musicians, are proud to play our role as one of the most sophisticated representations of the best of what the Army has to offer. Our members, our skills, our dedication to training and attention to detail, and our unending passion for what we do is meant to entertain, educate, and inspire all whom we encounter about our story, the American story. Our Army recognizes the immense power that music can have when forging the bonds that remind us all of our common humanity. It inspires us with national pride, moves our emotions, keeps us in support of our troops, and fluently communicates a universal message across any border or boundary, that we are all one. Whether in this audience, across our nation, or around the world. Celebrate what Army music continues to bring together, which is all of us. Thank you for being our honored guests. Army Strong.
Army Song.